Welcome back to the Vet S.O.S Podcast Network. Remember, you do not have to drown in the sea of transition. Grab that Vet SOS Lifeline. We're here to help. And today, sitting on the stoop, we're about to get the scoop because we're talking about a battle that doesn't take place on the battlefield. A battle that doesn't make the headlines. A battle many people fight in complete silence. Because sometimes the most dangerous wars aren't fought overseas. They're fought right here between our ears. They're fought behind closed doors. They're fought in moments where people are smiling on the outside while struggling quietly on the inside. Today's guest knows that battle intimately. Chris Kruger, the author of Walking Away from the Ledge, a soldier memoir, is a powerful, courageous, and deeply personal story of military service, struggle, resilience, and the fight to reclaim hope when life feels impossible. This isn't just a memoir. It's about a story of survival. It's about a story about identity, about healing, and about what happens when someone decides that their pain will not have the final word. Today, we're discussing trauma, military health, mental health, service, recovery, resilience, and the journey back from the edge. So if you ever struggled, if you ever felt lost, if you ever wondered if things could get better, because it has and it will, this conversation is for you. Because when you come sit on the stoop, you're going to get the scoop. So let's dive in. Brother, how we doing today? What's going on, Chris?
Good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, man. It is the end of basketball season. It's coming up the end of hockey season, in the middle of baseball season, and soon to be football season. So I'm excited. It's warm outside, and thank you for coming and sitting on the stoop so we could get the scoop. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Glad to be here and honored you guys to have me on.
Hey, so I was waiting for this conversation. I had to reach out to Sean. He's the co-founder and producer of that S.O.S podcast. And I said, hey, we need Chris on here now because I've been reading this book front cover, back cover. I said, this thing aligns up with my journey. And I said, wow, there's another veteran that went through his journey. And he put it in the book for others to help others out, to share, to be vulnerable of what he went through, of how he survived, how he made it through. And to pay homage to the individuals that you met along your way and along your journey. So I got a little bit of scoop on you, Chris. Like, what's the scoop on you, Chris? Because I know the audience and listeners would like to know.
Man, so, honestly, I never should have joined the Army, right? I was not a sporting guy. I didn't, I was a slacker. I had no real ambition and all that stuff. And the biggest thing that brought me to it, I say it was my faith that brought me to it, because I bumped into the same Army recruiter 3 different times in 3 different locations in the not so big town of Spokane, Washington. And I had a different job each time. I think I didn't have the job the 3rd time. So I was like, all right, I got you. I'm joining. Okay. And then that's kind of what set it off. And I had nothing else going. So I was like, forget it. I'll do 6 years. Why not? Infantry with Airborne Ranger in my contract. And, he thought I was crazy. He's like, why you want to do that? And I was like, I don't know, maybe this will make a man out of me. Maybe I'll be able to, be one of those badasses, that we see in all those 80s and early 90s movies and stuff like that, and all that. And, after 6 years, some things happened in between here and there, but I was like, well, I don't know what else I'm going to do. This is all right, I guess, you know. So I just kept going with it. After a little bit, I switched over to aviation to be a pilot. There's a lot of disappointment with that, but I ended up being a Black Hawk pilot and finishing out after 22 and a half years as a Black Hawk maintenance test pilot. And that's that's the lowdown of it, the quick down and dirty of the whole thing there. So I'm sure you have more questions that'll generate some more details on that. But that's
Oh yeah,
that was my Army journey. Yeah.
man, I appreciate. So you said 23 and a half years, and then you say, you know what? I'm going to put 23 and a half years inside this book right here,
Yeah.
walking away from the ledge.
Yeah.
As soon as you sent this book over, I want to appreciate it of the handwritten note you put in there. So
Yeah.
I went through cover by cover, and then the first 5 pages, on page 4, you gave a salute to your fallen brothers in arms, name and dates.
Yeah.
And the following page, you wrote a poem that was placed in there. You said it was almost left out, it was almost forgotten, but you said, let's put it in there. And I'm so grateful. 'Cause I know when the readers get it, it's at the beginning, right? So
Yeah.
this sets up for the rest of the book. So I'm going to share what it says because I like the listeners and viewers to just hear this piece of collection. Someone says we are free, but freedom comes with a fee of blood, sweat, and occasional tears, Exi- anxiety, excitement, and feeling fear. From soldiers who have come and went, time and service they have spent. Under fire from big to small, the soldier must endure it all. Living here from day to day, far removed from any usual way. Hope is what keeps you alive, a goal or something toward to strive. Minimal comforts to boost morale, a letter from family or an old pal. The heat beats daily on your head, sweltering to the point you wish you were dead. To the victor, that's the key. And have stories for eternity. Friends made here last forever. To lead them in loss of battle, never. We've all been through good times and bad, through happy hours and many sad. But to come home to family and friends and tell them of the tour's end, about all the times of fear and I wishing I was never there. This will truly be a glorious time to share the experience with friends of mine. To tell the tales about Iraq, secretly hoping never to go back. Unbeknownst to me at the time, I would deploy to the Middle East more times than I care to remember.
Yeah. Yes. Way more times than I care to remember. Absolutely. 66 months total worth of time that I don't care to remember, to be exact. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you wrote that poem, what's the scoop on just sitting down and putting that collection on paper?
So I transport myself back there. So that would have been Iraq. I was in Iraq, late 2003s, maybe New Year after 2004. And I was really, you know, I was really just trying to put to words kind of, how I was feeling and the things that were going on because, at that time, right, Iraq kicked off and there was support from everybody, letters from everybody, I just getting letters from friends, from family, from all that stuff. And friends I hadn't seen since I joined and all that too. So that was great. We had lost a couple guys, and unfortunately, but it wasn't due to combat. Um, we finished out that deployment losing one guy to combat, but I don't think at the time I wrote that we had lost that guy yet. So the other ones were due to a vehicle rollover, which was just totally senseless. And so I was really just trying to sum up how I felt at that time. And roughly at about that, if I had to take a guess, about that 10-month mark, like I said, just trying to put it to paper so that I could have something to, just do that. And I had written some poems of some random stuff before, but nothing that I kept, and nothing that was, noteworthy. But I definitely kept that one, and I shared it with a few people too, and they were like, "Hey, that's really good." And I was like, "Cool, thanks." And that was it. But yeah, just summing up how I kind of felt at that 10-month, and really trying to put emotions on paper, and I never figured I would have it to share in a book later, but that's kind of cool that it kind of came full circle with that too. So
Yeah, and coming full circle. So I'm looking at the cover, like I share with others when I have authors come on. Um, I like to talk about the cover of the book.
yeah,
Right. I was like, well, if you're walking through an airport, or if you're walking to the store and you come up on the cover, like, man, walking away from the ledge. Why this cover? What made you come up with this? Because I see an individual right at the edge, what it
yeah,
looks like a high point.
yeah. Yeah, so the publisher came up with the cover art, and she gave me about 8 different options to look at. And my wife and I, sat down together and kind of like yes and no, yes and no. I mean, there was a couple of them that were like, no, not at all. And it kind of looked more serene. Like here's this cliff, that someone's kind of the full length person, standing there or whatever, and it almost looks like they're enjoying the view kind of thing. So we're like, no. But that one with like the look, the colors, the lettering, and everything was just like, I think this more speaks to the kind of like mental health, and obviously that's not like camouflage or anything, but it's, it still looks pretty rugged and all that. It really, I think that one spoke to us more, even with the colors and everything. It looked worn, and like this has been through some stuff, and that's the one we ultimately decided on.
Right. And this book is powerful, Pat, because I like the way how you broke it down. First thing I tell people, hey, look at the chapters. But the great thing that you just have chapter 1, chapter
Yeah,
2, chapter 3, it doesn't, because you have to go through the chapter. So when I summed up the chapters, I put chapter 1 through 4. I call that the soldier chapter, right? This is you
yeah,
going, like
yeah,
the recruiter, you go into the mall, you talk about like,
yeah.
hey, are you gonna pay parking the spot out? So before the struggles came, who was Chris, right? Because you're like, man, I'm not even thinking about this army stuff, like before the struggle, before signing that paper, like, hey, I need to make sure you have these in my contract before I go.
Yeah.
So who was Chris before? What dreams and beliefs shaped the young man who chose military service? He's like, you know what? Let me go give this military thing a try.
Chris was insecure, unconfident, and you know, uh, I'm just gonna say what's coming to mind. Con Air, the movie Con Air, right? Here's Nicolas Cage, and we all know Nicolas Cage
Yes.
isn't like this really badass guy, right? And
Right.
then all of a sudden he's in Con Air and The Rock. Those were like back to back, right? Some of my favorite movies still from the late '90s and all that. And I was like, I want to be like that. That's what I want to be like, right? And so I was like, okay, well, he was a ranger in the movie, so I guess that's what I want to go do, so I can be like Nick Cage. Oh man, I used to know the character name too, but anyway, it doesn't matter. So that's who I was. I was insecure, unconfident, I was not strong at all. I was 148 pounds. I barely passed PT tests and basic training and all that junk. So I did start working out and running before I joined, but it was like I had to work myself up to be able to bench, 2 plates, right? It's like that accomplishment. Hey, I'm hitting
Mm.
135. I got 2 plates on there. I had to work up to that. I had to get there. And even that was like an achievement for me. But then, making it to basic training, all that stuff, somehow, they had the split running groups, right? Your group A, B, and C, right? So if you're a fast
Yep.
runner, you're in group A. Somehow I made it into group A, and I would get done with every run, and I just be like, I just wanted to die, like I couldn't breathe. And then I just got better and better. And I had a really good battle buddy in basic training. He was the guy that you would think would join the army. He's a wrestler in high school. I think he grew up on a farm out in Wyoming and stuff like that. So he was kind of like that ideal, like, oh, he's going to the army and he's going to do well, and he did. But me being paired up with him, being battle buddies and stuff, it just pushed me harder because I was like, well, I don't want him to look so good, and I just look like this turd over here. And so that, being paired up with him kind of helped me push even harder so I could look better. But even with all the insecurities and being unconfident and everything, I just was like, I'm just not going to quit any challenge that comes my way. So if the
Mm.
only way I'm going to fail any of these challenges is if I physically pass out or just my body will not go, I'm not going to quit. My body's going to quit on me. And that's kind of what I adopted early on in the army. But yeah, definitely. Who was Chris Kruger? He was insecure and lacked all confidence because like I said, I wasn't that sports guy. I wasn't, I'd never pushed myself super hard, at anything. And so this was me just kind of, you know, hopping on that bike and going like, okay, I'm going to ride it until I can't anymore.
And you know what? And you said, "Hey, I want the hard. I want a challenge." You
Yeah.
said, I want a challenge. I don't want the regular army. I want to do Ranger School. I want to do Halo. I want to do parachute. I want to do everything. Give it to me. Give it to Mikey. He'll eat it. So, what did the military give you? What parts of the identity built you? Because you went to some awesome school, jump master school. All
Yeah.
this stuff. Like, let me. And I didn't realize when I was going through the book, I said, "Wow, that's something like a seal a seal training, right? You going
Yeah.
underwater,
School pipeline. Yeah.
swimming, yeah, all of that." I was like, "Wow." So, what parts of your identity was built when you first went into service, and then you had to, you wanted to do the ranger, you got your ranger tag, you had a little setback, but then you jump master. Like, what
Yeah.
parts of your identity were built during your first couple of years in service?
So what I think the initial, as you're asking that, the first thing I can think of is when I first got to Fox Company 51st Infantry Long Range Surveillance Company, right? I didn't make it into Ranger Battalion. Failed the PT test by a push up or sit up or two on both of those. Did the best ever on the run that I like a
Yeah.
like a like a 1240 or something on the run, right? But it wasn't good enough, so they sent us to a LURS unit, a long range surveillance unit, which normally has a tryout. But they were like, hey, you guys don't have enough members, so either you get more people or we disband you. So they were like, fine, we'll take people. So one of the first things we did after the new year of 2001 was a 10-mile run. And I had never run anything longer than that 5-mile slow run in basic training. And
Mm.
so everybody's looking at us like they're just gonna, destroy us if we don't make this run. So I just ran. And me and a couple other guys finished in the front of the group. And one of the NCOs pulled us aside, was like, hey, you guys finished up front. All eyes are on you. You guys just stood out among the guys you got there with. And I was like, is that good or bad? We'll find out. And so with that, I did well at the unit. I just kind of, again, without quitting anything, I kind of excelled as much as a private can excel in the army.
Mm.
And I kept getting kind of rewarded with things like, hey, we're going to send you to expert infantry badge training. And everybody went to that, but I made it through to where some, like only half of the guys they sent made it through. And then after that, being long range surveillance was only we operated in 6-man teams. So they're like, hey, you can take leave or you can go to emergency medical technician training because they were allowed to have 2 qualified ones per team. And I was like, okay, I'll take that. Sure, why not?
Yeah.
And then after that, 9/11 happened, and they were like, "Well, no one's going on leave, but we'll still send you to pre-ranger if you want." I was like, "Cool." Ranger school was like my redemption shot to me for
Yeah.
not making it into Ranger battalion. So I went to pre-ranger and then to Ranger school, and after that, uh, all that while I was on a water team. We did a lot of water train up stuff, Zodiacs, and I found out I could swim well too. I'd never had pushed myself like that, and I did the techniques they taught us, and I was like, "Cool, I could swim." I was no Michael Phelps, but I could swim, and and that was a lot of fun too. And so all of this stuff was just kind of building my confidence, but it was also making me arrogant.
Yeah.
Started getting very big ego that hey, this now at this point I'm about 160, 165 pounds, put on a little weight, and all that stuff. In all honesty, if someone would have punched me in the face, maybe, or something like that, it probably would have put me in my spot just a little bit. But nobody
Right.
did, and they just let the little pit bull run, and and it's pride before the fall is what it went to. But yeah, so early on in the army, it changed from being unconfident and insecure to it was like the pendulum swung to the other side, just like overly confident, arrogant, and all this stuff just because of it. And it was a blessing that all these things came to me because they all just came to me. I didn't have to fight for them. I didn't go ask to go to Halo school because after I got back from
Right.
Ranger school, they're like, "Hey, you're going to a Halo team and you're going to Halo school." And I was like, "Oh, boo hoo." They're like, "Yeah, send me.
Right.
I want to go." Like, awesome bucket list stuff. So yeah, that's really how it just kind of came about. Like every time I would succeed, there'd kind of just be this reward. I was like, cool, I'll just keep going, because it was just me and the barracks. And yeah, so it just really went from there.
Yeah. So you get the training, you're getting ready for it, and then and you start to come up like on your deployments, right? You like your first deployment. I call this chapters 5 to 8, right? That's like
Yeah.
when the cracks begin to show, right? The stress, the trauma, the emotional burden, like, wow, I'm about to put all this training I have
Yeah.
to the test, right? I'm when did the weight start coming heavier than you could carry? Like you, you got these schools, you like, okay, hey, I'm ready. Get that first deployment. And then
Yeah.
he's like, man, what was uh corporal slash specialist? 'Cause that's what was that Kruger was getting ready, like, man, like,
Yeah. So I definitely had that put me in my place moment. And and that was fine and I needed it and it humbled me out just a little bit. But then yeah, we went to Iraq and it was something all new and there was a big buildup like we're going to combat, we're going to be seeing all sorts of, we didn't know. And then it ended up being kind of this big nothing burger, just
yeah,
just airfield security, a little bit of boredom, and then every now and then pop shots and whatever. Um, and so I think it was more the frustration of dealing with the fact that we thought we were going to wartime to be some heroes, and we went to wartime to go, you know, sit on a border berm and eyeball smugglers or go up to the northern part of Iraq and train up a border patrol up there because SF didn't want to do it and we had enough people or something like that. So that really just became this whole struggle to see that we went to combat and a change of command was more important, or I couldn't go home
right,
for my grandfather that passed away or anything because they needed numbers there. And so that frustration, but we could send people back home to go to captain's career course, or
right,
all these things. So it just became this huge letdown that we were expecting. I don't know what, maybe like Vietnam type of stuff or anything else like that. And then it was just this like, we got to fight for a mission and fight for relevance. So yeah, it was just a big deflated thing and letdown of, I get, expectation really is what it came out to. Yeah.
Yeah, and during these chapters, you put in there, you was real ticked off and first time experiencing trauma. Like, what does trauma feel like before you even know it's trauma? Like, how did it show up in your life? Like, for that first experience that you wrote in the book.
I think that's experiencing trauma for that first time is weird because like kind of like you were hinting at there, like you didn't know that's what it was, you know.
Mm.
And I think I didn't know what it was until many years later. Just that whole trauma of, because I think trauma kind of comes a little bit for some people
Mhm.
comically, because you laugh at it afterward,
Yeah.
you see something explode in the sky and you're like, what is that? And the gas alarm goes off, so you run for your gas mask and all this stuff, and then everything's fine, and afterward you're like, okay, hey, whatever. Or you roll through an IED and you happen to be the ones where everyone's okay, you're like, hey, we're all okay, like no big deal, and all that. So you just, and I think that's also our way to trick ourselves to be like, oh, see, it's no big deal, right? I handled
Right.
it. I'm fine. So I think initially trauma, we're all just kind of like, most people, unless you took the direct hit, and I'm not taking away anything from anybody who was that person that would be like, he's full of crap. Like, I didn't take the direct hit. I didn't lose a limb, or, I didn't get a TBI, right? So I think for the most part, that trauma, we just kind of laugh it off and be like, oh, okay, that's it. Oh, okay, I'm good, like no problem. Because then we also see those guys that did take the direct hit and we're like, I'm not as bad off as that guy. So
Right.
it's not trauma. I'm okay. So I think I just kind of glossed it over initially, that it was like, no, yeah, I'm fine. I can still function. It's no big
Yeah.
deal. Yeah.
And that's one of the things that you put in that we talked before we hit record is putting that mask on, like, hey,
Yeah.
are you good to go? And then, one of your response, like, yes, Sergeant, I'm good. Because
Yeah.
it's that, you just fall back into that mentality. Like, is it's the lies that you're telling people, is the lies that I was telling people that I was good when internally I was trying to process it and figure out why do I feel this way, or why I have no emotions, or why, what lies did it tell you? Like when you was, cause I know I was sharing lies to people when said I was good. When I was just trying to process it. Cause I did not want to expose myself or look like the weak link, or, look like I want to be taken off the line, or be have my weapon take away, or sitting in the rear with the gear and everybody else is going out on the mission.
Yeah. I think that's something that's kind of inadvertently deceptive about the mask too, is that, we don't I think we don't think that we're putting on a mask. I think we're just, hey, I got to drive on with mission. And this is, so when I say it's deceptive, it's just like, I'm not intending to put on a mask or
Right.
thinking I'm putting on a mask. I'm just doing what I got to do because I got to go out here and do mission. Left and right's counting on me. You know what I mean?
Right.
So yeah, I think that's part of it, with the mask, as you were mentioning it there, that just kind of really popped in my head, is that it's not intentional for the most part. And I think most of us don't think we're faking it either. But really, when you look back at it, when you have some time to sit, you have some time to reflect, you have some time to put down some words digitally, you're like, yeah, I was faking the funk. I just didn't realize it at the time. So I think that's it with trauma, with the mask and all those things. We just don't realize what we're doing at the time because it's what we're trained to do,
Yeah.
bury it down deep and drive
Yeah.
on
For
with the
me, I was like,
mission.
I pack it away. I get to it later. Like,
Yeah.
the mission will have to go on. Like, I get to it later. Feelings, I don't need that right now. Like, we got to focus. We
Yeah.
got mission on target. We got to, hit outside. Especially if you have troops, of people underneath you, you want to show that you're strong, you're put together. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, all this stuff is
Yeah.
is locked in. Like, you're locked in and focus.
Yeah. 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 And we can only do it so long. We can only fill that rucksack so full until it just explodes, and unfortunately explodes in our faces and everybody else who's around us. They get some collateral damage from that ruck opening up too. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So what was happening externally while you was struggling internally? Because I know, like in these chapters, you talk about, with the roadside bomb and with other engagements that you had. It was that like, oh man, like man, we made it through. Okay, we made it, through the thing. We look back, nobody was hurt. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, our vehicles took on damage, right? But everybody made it safe. Like, what was that struggling internally? Like, man, today could have been the day, but it wasn't.
Um, so let's see what externally around that time was definitely a lot of incoming fire. There was going on. There was, around that time too, like getting in communication with people was a
Mhm.
lot harder because there wasn't any Wi-Fi, none of that existed yet. So, you didn't have that pick me up and, just you'd get letters occasionally and all that stuff. And that was always a nice pick me up and, getting it from people that you hadn't maybe heard from in a while. So that was great too. But and then we were trying to get some mission sets and all that stuff, and we weren't getting that. So it was just kind of like, what are we doing here? And a lot of the time, because what Bush came out real quick and was like, "Hey, we're calling the end of major armed conflict," and so we're like, "Oh, cool. So are we going home?" And we kept hearing like, "Hey, major conflict's over. We're going to be going home."
Eh,
So we're kind of like, "Oh,
eh,
cool. So we've only been gone for 4 months, 3 months at that time." And they're like, "All right, cool. We'll be going home. This is lame anyway. Let's go home.
Yeah,
It's
and you
all."
heard you got extended. We're
Yeah,
being
yeah,
extended.
and then it's like, so then the next month they're like, "Hey, they're still talking about sending people home." Next month is, okay, so we need to start up a leave roster now because we're here for the full deal and we're gonna let people start taking leave. And it was just like, okay, I'm just gonna say like I'm never going home, and then that way when I go home, I can be all up in there. And so you try and push that one aside, you try and bury that down deep. So, you had the incoming and then, IED starts picking up. But we were in Missoula and out toward Telefar, so north in the northwest area. So we didn't have a whole heck of a lot of that IED stuff like in Baghdad and some other areas. So it was a threat, of course, but it wasn't the more prevalent threat in our location. But of course, we're still deployed and we're still in Iraq and we're still not home and safe. So yeah, those were the bigger external ones, mainly just kind of the early on there. It was just the opportunity shots of IEDs and incoming and pop shots on things, and at that time we were still rolling around on like soft top Humvees. We didn't have up
Eh,
armor,
yeah,
nothing. Like put sandbags on the
yeah.
floor, like, okay,
Sandbags and
great.
metal plates. Yeah, like, hey, let's
Yeah.
bolt this stuff on. Like, oh
Yep.
yeah, I remember those days. For the ones that just popping in, that just tuned in, we're talking to the author of "Walking Away from the Ledge." My man Chris Kruger here is talk about resilience and talk about the internal battles and just the day-to-day life in his career and his life journey. And we're coming up to what I call the ledge chapters, chapter 9 to 13. That's what I call like the ledge. Right? You get right there at the edge. And that's where we're coming. You talk about these deployments, isolation, this way. And now you get told, now you're coming back. You're coming
Yeah.
back home. And people are seeing you changed, but you don't feel that you changed, right? Like what
Yeah.
was the
Yeah.
loneliest moment of your life? Like it, you coming back, people, want to life continued for them, but when
Yeah.
we come back, we're trying to pick up where we left off when life already, moved forward. But I don't know if that makes sense to people that's listening, but my brain when I deploy, I was like, man, let me pick up where I left off. But when they already, this is like a 10-month, 11-month for you is what, 15 months, 18-month
That was
gap where you
12.
trying to
Yeah.
12 months for that one.
Yep.
Right. So what was the loneliest moment of your life when you came out? What thoughts were consuming you when you turn back home for your decompression period?
Yeah. Yeah, and that wasn't much because we knew before we even got back that we were gonna be heading right back in 8 months. So we knew, w either we needed to have something on paper where we were gonna PCS somewhere or where we were gonna, a lot of guys put in, SF packets to go special forces or, any number of things, and I was like, "Okay, well, I'm still new to all this, so I guess I'm just going back to Iraq in 8 more months." And so that led to, a lot of drinking.
Mm,
And, we were everybody, I think most everybody was sneaking drinks during the deployment anyway. But then you get back and you're uninhibited, and you're not restricted. So it led to a lot of drinking. And it's probably another a mask incident or mask scenario where I just kind of kept it or thought I kept it under control or kidded myself that I kept it under control. But, it just it was a daily thing, it was just like, "Okay, I'm gonna go to work, gonna do our thing, go home, get some dinner and drink," and then Saturdays, I would wake up and I had this thing, I don't remember if I put it in the book or not, I don't think I did, but it was Saturday morning cartoons and screwdrivers, it was just orange
mm.
juice and vodka, and I don't think I ever watched any cartoons, but I was like, "Okay, it's Saturday, I get up, vodka and OJ, why not?" And, just to start the day and just for the heck of it, not because I needed
Right.
it. It wasn't like that alcoholic level where I had to have it. But I was just like, who cares? Yeah, we're gonna head back anyway, so whatever. Um, I think really just one of the loneliest parts I had on that time being home was I went home to which was Spokane. I went home to see my family, and that's when people noticed just how much I had changed. And I thought like I was being this like caring guy about grave injustices between, my family members or something like that. But nobody wanted to be around me. Except for, my one or two buddies that I still kept in touch with from high school. And I found myself just going out and drinking with them at the bars, more than anything. And then just looking for excuses to get away. We even had some family come over from the other side of the state, from Seattle and all that stuff to come visit. And yeah, and it was good, it was good catching up with them and chatting. But
Mm,
then, somewhere in the middle of it, I text my buddy or called him and was like, "Dude, come pick me up. I need out of here right now. Like, I
mm.
can't deal with this at the moment." And we went and played pool and had some beer. And, and that's when, again, I was just like, okay, this isn't like my element anymore. But I
Mm,
still didn't think that there was anything wrong with what I was doing, just wanting to go out and have fun because I was, 23, give or take, 24 at the time. So, I just was like, yeah, I'm just trying to go out and have fun. And I think that's kind of was just like, I think I thought that's what my family thought, but what they thought was like something's wrong, but nobody knows what. And we'll just let him go do his thing. So,
yeah.
yeah, I remember, this kind of like my family didn't want to be around me really. They didn't, this kind of like an overstatement a little bit, but they were just like, what are we going to get when he's
Right.
around? Yeah.
Right. We don't know. Are we gonna get the good Chris, the happy Chris, the bad
Yeah.
Chris, the sad Chris? So when people hear walking away from the ledge, they hear survival, right? Like, oh man, he walked away from the ledge. They hear survival. What did that ledge actually look like for you?
So that would have to, to get there, we'd have to jump way ahead, and that's totally fine. But walking away from the ledge was ultimately when I went up to the ledge of a maintenance platform hangar. This was years later, and this was in 2021. Um, Numerous deployments, and you see good chains of leadership, bad chains of leadership, and I was in a pretty rough for me chain of leadership after, and this was in about a year after what was a pretty good aviation deployment, I'd like to say, with good leadership and all that stuff. And so there was a year of just bad leadership. My wife and I were not in a good place. I was drinking heavily, hiding all the drinking. I think I was drinking with medication and all this other stuff, and I walked out to the hangar floor, and I see the stairs for the maintenance platform, and the normal chains that are across them aren't across, because they just don't want people randomly going up there. So I was like, "Oh, let me go take a look at the view." And so I walked up the
Mm,
stairs, and I just went up there and I started looking over the edge, and I'm like, "Oh, I wonder how far that is." It's like, yeah, it's about 30, maybe 40 feet, something like that. I don't know for sure. And I started just leaning forward over the railing to look at it so that I can't see the railing anymore. And I'm looking down
mm,
there, and I'm thinking about, I don't remember what I was thinking about. I was thinking about all of it though. All
right.
of it and none of it at the same time, just
Same
every
time.
deployment, just 70 months of total deployed time, marriage not doing well. Just do I even care? Do I care anymore? And then I started thinking kind of like those morbid but funny thoughts that we think like,
Mm,
I wonder if I just throw myself over, how long is it going to take for someone to see me, come and find me? I wonder if they ran a secret pool. It was just like, Kruger's at the end of his rope, man. It's like, hey, let's start taking dates down. Well, what day do we think he's going to go do this, type of thing,
right.
and funny stuff like that. And I was just like, and somewhere in the middle of that, I did think, F it, do it, just do it. And I really leaned over there, and I thought about my family and all that stuff. And it wasn't thinking about my family that got me to stop and back up. It was the thought, what if I live? And
Mm,
what if I live and I lose some functionality,
right.
a paraplegic, quadriplegic, something like that. And I was like, then, or what if I live and I'm in a vegetable state or something like that, and now my family's got to be right there dealing with the consequences of my actions while I'm just, passenger to the whole thing, while I'm just an
Right.
onlooker to the whole thing. And I sat back. I sat back, sat down there, and I started crying. I
Mm,
broke down and was like, "What?" And it wasn't even like, "What did I almost do?" It was like, and it maybe like maybe it was a little bit like, "What did I almost do?" And combined with, "How did I get here? How did I
mm,
end up at this point right here where I was just so ready to do it?" And then it was, "What am I gonna do about this?" And, that answer didn't really come because I thought I was doing stuff about it. I'd already sought behavioral health, mental health, medications, cognitive therapy, um, you know, uh, name it, I was doing it or
yeah.
giving it a try. And, so I was like, what do I do? How did I get here? And then that's what that point started walking away from the ledge. Um, and it's an ongoing process, because the struggles, the mental struggles and battles are fewer and further between these days, but they're still there. They're still there.
Yeah.
Um, they just, I think I'm able to handle them a little bit better these
Mm,
days. Yeah. But yeah,
yeah.
that's where walking away from the ledge,
Mm,
ultimately came from, that I was ready. And I did. I stood up over there and I was like, okay, I can't see the railing anymore. It was just like, just effing do it. And I was like,
mm,
where did that come from? Too. So
right.
yeah,
I appreciate you sharing. So, if someone is listening, standing on their emotional ledge today, what would you want them to hear? And I want you to speak to them directly.
yeah, man. Somebody cares. Somebody wants you. Somebody needs you. And that's
Mm,
not hyperbole. That's not. I'm not just trying to. That's a fact. Even if you can look at everybody who's close to you in your life and just be like, they don't care. They care. Somebody cares. And if that's the only thing you can hold on to at the moment, then that's reason enough to step back and
mm,
evaluate, and there is something going on in there. And if you're struggling and you've been struggling and you've made it this far, there's a light at the end of that tunnel. It may be way far down at the end of that tunnel, and mine was way far down there. Um, but it's there, and it is totally worth the battle to get there,
Mm.
no matter what you gotta do.
Thank you
Absolutely.
for sharing.
Yeah.
And this is where in the book I like to call this the, you know, it's like I like to go on the roller coaster. This book
Yeah.
definitely have the roller coaster effect, right? So we get to chapters 14 to 17. I call this the turning point chapters, right? Like this is
Yeah.
where I seen Chris healing, the
Mhm.
healing of Chris.
Yeah.
So what was the first step towards your healing? Like, why was that step so difficult?
So shortly after that, that was kind of the steps toward the healing. And really the bigger one was actually, leaning into my faith, like
Mm,
real hard. It came more, I would say, on terminal leave than anything else. Um, so I went on terminal leave July of 2022,
mm,
and I was drinking a bit here, and I knew I wanted to quit. I knew I was done. I was like, it's got to go. It's just got to get out of my life. Because I just anytime, like, I could have control over it, but I wouldn't.
mm,
And I'd be like, "Oh, this buzz feels good. Let me keep having another one and another one." And then finally, it's just I'm drunk. And then it was and I had struggled with alcohol off and on over the years.
mm.
I surprised many counselors when I was like, "Well, yeah, I've quit for a couple of years at a time, multiple times." And they're like, "Really?"
Right.
I'm like, "Why is that so shocking?" They're like, "Most people don't." I was like, "Okay." I said, "Well, yeah, I wish I was celebrating 20 years because if I would have stayed sober from the first time, I would have been celebrating 20 years of sobriety this year." I was like, "I wish I was, shoot, I
Right.
wish I was celebrating 14 from the second time I quit drinking, all this other stuff." And those weren't deployment related. They coincided with deployments, but they weren't.
Mm,
I didn't start quit drinking because of a deployment. It was usually beforehand. Um, but so so I'm on terminal leave. We moved down to Huntsville, Alabama. And we moved down here not for a job, but just good economy. Houses weren't crazy prices, all that stuff
mm,
around that time. Um, and so we found a church down here and started going. And then around October of 22, before I was actually officially retired, I was real super drunk one night. And my wife was like, "Oh, we were afraid of you. Um,
mm.
you need to make a choice, alcohol or us." And I was like, "Okay, all right." And so, I just swallowed a bit of pride and all that stuff. And I apologized to my wife and daughters, and said, "It won't happen again."
Wow.
2 weeks later, it happened again. And I was like, "Oh, I'm okay. All right. Yeah, we're committing now."
Mm,
Um, So then New Year 23 comes along, and I hopped on the scale, and this is, like you had mentioned you lost a lot of weight and all that stuff. What New Year, and I'd always worked out in some capacity, even if it was like body weight stuff.
mm,
But I hopped on the scale at New Year, and again, everybody's story is different. So
mm.
this isn't to like, I'm not shaming anybody by this.
No.
This is just my story. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
anyone
yeah.
listening. So I hopped on the scale, and it was 200 pounds on the dot, 200.0 on that digital scale. And that point zero, man, it like punched me in the face. I was just
Yeah.
like,
Because you was like,
this
well,
is
you
that.
said 140, soak it wet, when you first
Yeah,
started
yeah.
out. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
huge. Yeah.
Yeah. So I was just like, and it was not muscle, So
Right.
I was like, okay, something's got to go here. So New Year 23, I was like, I'm going to work out 3 times a day. Redstone Arsenal is here, about 20-minute drive. They have a decent gym there. I was like, I'm work out 3 times a day for sure, and walk twice a day. So Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I'm working out.
Yes.
Tuesday and Thursday, I'm walking. I'm
Yes.
gonna get in a Bible study group at church. I'm gonna, volunteer here. All these things I said I was gonna do when I retired. I was gonna do that, because I didn't have to go to work because uh, pension and disability, and we made sure that any debt that we got, like if we bought a car, we're like, okay, we're only going to buy this car if we know we can pay it off like within a year instead of,
Right.
like a full term or whatever. So we didn't have any debt, just house expenses. And that's something that we planned long in advance. And my wife wanted to go back to work, but she didn't know if she could trust me if she went back to work
Mm.
that I was going to get the girls to school on time and,
Right.
be the at home parent, to which I totally proved her wrong. I handled that because
Yeah.
she ended up getting some work, and I handled that and, made dinners and everything was well. But anyway, that's just a neat little thing that we discovered, and I like cooking
Yeah.
and I don't mind cleaning all that junk. So, it was just kind of a thing. But anyway, so I got in a Bible study with some really good guys, really leaned into my faith, really, listening to podcasts that support it. If I'm working out, I was listening to podcasts, changed the music I was listening to, changed the shows I was
Mm.
watching. I mean, like holistic, talk about holistic
Yes.
change. It was holistic change. And, and by the grace of God, meeting all these right people at the
Mm.
right times and going through these things, I still again struggled with that, with like the temptation to drink was only there for like the first couple weeks to maybe a month afterward. And then like like being sober, thank God, being sober for me is easy to just say no to alcohol, but is like getting to the point of doing it that was always kind of the hard part, um, to come around to it. And that my daughters were old enough to know, like, oh, dad's drinking, he's
Mm.
drunk, also was a thing too, because right around the time I was 15, give or take, my dad started drinking again and smoking again and all that stuff. So at that impressionable age, and that came into my mind too, and I was just like, I
Right.
don't want them to see this, and it makes it okay for them. And now they have a struggle with it later in life too. So those were all really the combination of things. Just like I said, physically working out, like let's get it all out of me, and sweat it all
Yeah.
out too. And
Yes.
mentally, not just I kept going to counseling. They had a really good counselor here at the vet center in Huntsville, and she was great. She didn't accept any crap, so if you gave some
Mhm.
kind of crap answer to a question, she's like, I,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
buy
No.
that. Try again. I'm
Right.
like,
Right.
oh, okay. So, and I was never one to sit there and go into any counseling and like lie. I wouldn't tell the
Mm.
whole truth, which is still a lie,
Right.
but I wouldn't go in there and just be like, "Oh, yeah, I don't drink
Yeah.
at
You just
all,"
omit
or
some
something
stuff.
like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
understand.
So
Yeah.
so that help too, and I had forgotten all about that because it's been about, since I started work after the new year here. I was like, I told him, I was like, "Hey, I won't be able to make it to these," she called it the lunch bunch on Thursdays at 1 o'clock or noon, I can't remember. Um, I was like, "Hey, I can't make it anymore," and she's like, "You go and enjoy the work that came your way, like, that's amazing, and you've done some great work here," like like, and I took that as like,
Nice.
"You're free and clear, get out of here, you're
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
you're gonna be alright, you'll work through it." So, yeah, that took 3 years, but but
Ah,
yeah,
that's good.
so mentally was, counseling, and spiritually with church and church groups
Mm.
and stuff like that. So, and it was like, and it's hard work. It's hard work to sit there and just openly admit, I'm not all
Yeah.
right. I am not okay and I need help.
Man,
Yeah.
I appreciate sharing that. And what did recovery teach you about strength? Like, has your definition changed since you had to go through that recovery process? You got blessed off like, hey, you don't have to come to to the lunchtime meetup anyway. This
Yeah.
is me signing you off.
Yeah. So it's, how do I word it? It's so much strength on a different level. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Obviously not physical, because it's like my entire book, yeah, I could have been like Taken Off the Mask would have been another good title. You know what I mean? Just like we're done with that. We're done hiding
Right.
behind this mask anymore, you know? So the strength required to do it, the hardest part is just kind of like I was saying, just admitting that you got to do it because
Mm.
because the world says if you're a man, you got it, right?
Right. Right.
Then that makes you a man. But I think it's so much more to say I don't got it. I need somebody because we're not built to just carry it all by ourselves.
Yes.
If we were, if we didn't need anybody else, then we could go to Iraq by ourselves and just say, I got it, like, I'm going to walk up in here. I got it, or wherever. It doesn't matter, but we need other people to accomplish the goal. I think anyone who
Yeah.
says, like, oh, I'm self-made is full of crap. You needed
Yeah.
somebody in your
Humans
life
need
to,
humans.
yeah, you
Humans
needed
need
someone
humans.
else.
Yeah.
Yeah, you needed someone to point you in maybe you didn't need somebody else's money, but you needed
Right.
someone to point you in the right direction, someone to help you somewhere along the way. And I think that is a bigger strength. Just saying, like, instead of saying, like, I bench 315, like, that's cool. That's a feat, that's really
Yeah.
awesome. But to sit here and say, did you need a spotter?
Right.
Did you
How
want a
how was your
spotter there to
form?
make
Yeah. Like,
sure?
oh, how was your
Yeah.
form? Was your
Did
form
you
good?
just
Yeah.
bounce it off your
Yeah.
chest and get it back up there?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that strength of just really sitting there saying, I need help.
Mm.
That's one
Eh,
step. Going and
yes.
getting that help, that's another step. Continuing in that, and because a lot of us are like, hey, I've made some strides. Now let me go back to what I was doing because I was comfortable there. And then
Mm.
realizing like, oh crap, man, that's not working. I can't have both. You
Right.
can't. I said this some years ago, like you can't have the before and after picture, right? I said you can't have the after picture if you're still living the before life, right?
Oh, that's good.
Thank you. And
That's
I
good.
don't believe I stole that from anybody. If someone else had it out there, I tried to look it up one time some years ago, right?
No, that's good because you see the picture I showed you, right? My before, my before
Yeah,
picture. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's why
So
I'm
yeah,
laughing right now. I'm like, wow. Yeah.
yeah.
That's true.
And I hadn't said it in years, and I forgot all about it. But I did say that probably about 10 years ago. Might have been the first time I said it. I don't remember, but yeah, it's true. You can't have a new life if you're still trying to live that old one. You know,
Mm.
and you obviously need some help to get there. You need
Yeah.
someone, and it doesn't have to be someone who's walked the path all the way. Just maybe someone who's a few steps ahead of you to help, man, let me pull you
Yeah.
along a little bit, and I think that is the ultimate, I shared this on Facebook recently or somewhere. You know, when I wrote the book, it became a cathartic thing, right? It was
Mm.
working through all that stuff, and that was the thing. I shared the book so other people could be encouraged in their journey for that too. Um,
And that's why I shared with you before we even hit record. I said, man, thank
yeah,
you
yeah,
and this is part of the I like to call the last chapters of the book 18 to 21 is like we talked about, right? That walking forward. Like, you can't stop. In order for you to get through that storm, you still walk through it.
yeah,
Walk it. So how did you turn your pain into purpose? Because I know that you shared, you found your faith, you got your church, you got your family and friends, and you walking forward. This is your next stage right here. Walking forward,
yeah,
turning pain into purpose. Like, you share, it's some painful stuff in here, but now you sharing it in
yeah,
purpose. Like, hey, if I made it through, so can you.
yeah. Yeah, and that's really it. Just trying to get it, trying to get the word out there,
Mm.
about it. I really did. About this time last year was when it was getting ready. It released in August, so yeah, about this time last year, I was trying to generate that hype and all that stuff, and it came out the gate pretty strong. And within between August and about the New Year, I sold 250 copies. So
Nice.
yeah, more than just friends and family, and that was great. So, and there was various podcasts I was on, just trying to promote at first, and now, it kind of went out strong, is plateaued, kind of sitting there, and so now it's just like, okay, I got to keep it going somehow because I
Yeah.
still want to encourage people to do this thing. And I just found out today, so you can get the scoop on this one.
Nice. I'm sitting up for this one.
Yeah. So I believe my publisher submitted it for the Forward Indies Award.
Nice. Congrats. Heck yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
I found out in March that it made it into the top 6, so, there's that army in us or that military in
Right.
us. It's like,
Right.
okay, cool, whatever. Right. So I look it up. So here's where the Forward Indies Award sits. You got your like tier 1 stuff, Nobel Peace Prizes, Pulitzer Prizes, things like that. You have your tier 3 junk that's Amazon algorithms and all that stuff that tells you,
Mhm.
hey, you're number 1 this week because you sold 10 copies and the other guy only sold 9. Right.
Right.
So the algorithm driven stuff that changes every hour or whatever it is. So in the second tier, there's this Forward Indies Award. So I was like, oh, okay, that's cool. But I just found out today I didn't make the top 3. I was bummed. I was like, let's go for gold and all that stuff. But I got honorable mention. So I got 4th place. And it's awesome. And part of me is just like, shucks, like I
Yeah.
really wanted to make it on the podium there, So I was saying to my wife, I said, I feel like that rookie that made it to the Olympics, right? 1 book, first book, all that stuff, right? And just missed the podium by that much, So part of me is bummed out about the whole thing, but like honorable mention's a big thing. So this
Yeah.
should also help elevate it in promotions.
Yes.
Maybe
Cause you
help
know
get
what,
the
Chris? Guess what? How many people never even made it to the last round, to the last cut?
right.
That
Yeah.
even get a thought of how
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. Like,
Yeah.
and this is huge.
Well, that's funny too,
This
because
is huge.
I said as well. I was like, yeah, I feel, like, it feels like a boxing match where I won, but I took too many kidney shots on the way. Just like, yeah, I won, but man, I'm hurting. So no, it is huge. And I am, as I was driving home and had a minute to think about it, driving home from work, and I was like, that's really cool. It's really cool to be there, and so I'm hoping that it helps with promotion. I'm hoping it helps kind of get it out there even a bit more to get the word out, especially in that veteran community, because kind of like you were saying earlier, no no one's just going to come along. So no one's going to volunteer to come alongside you. And that's the other part about asking for help. Like you realize who's there for you.
Yes.
You realize who's there for you when you don't ask for help. Nobody is. But when you ask for that help, then you realize who's going to come through for you.
Right.
And that was, another thing I kind of just came to the conclusion of about 6 months ago, maybe just a little bit more than that, was just like, I was, kind of having another one of those little stumble issue moments, just mentally dealing with some stuff. And like, even though someone knew about it, they didn't approach me to be like, hey, are you okay? And I was like, that's pretty messed up.
Huh.
But then when I went and asked for help from someone else about it, they were there all over it. And
Right.
and yeah, so like I said, I really, more than anything, I didn't write the book and get it published to make money or anything like that. It was to just be like, hey, read this. You're not alone. You're not the only person that went through it. And if anything, it's more of like an average guy's type of story, not some, Navy SEAL, look at this awesome mission, because at no time did I really accomplish anything. Like, I accomplished feats that a guy like me would never have dreamed of. If someone told me at the
Exactly.
age of 18, you're going to go and do all this stuff, I'd have been like, okay, yeah, me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like,
You were
that's
like,
not
yeah,
going to
me,
happen.
125 pound me, 130 pound
Yeah,
me.
yeah,
No
and I
way.
probably was, yeah. Like,
So man,
yeah.
this is a great conversation, and thank you for sharing your story and journey. And like I said, When I go through and I read through the book, I jot down phrases and things that come to my recollection, right? And I put it down, and I like to share it at the end of the show to say thank you. And this is what keeps me going, keeps my fuel burning. Because as I shared with you, is we all have battles. Everybody has a battle.
Yeah.
When we're ready, when you're ready, you're able to share it. So this is my battle that I'm able and willing to share it. And after reading your book, this is what I wrote down. So I want to share with you and the audience before we sign off. The strongest battles are often invisible. Asking for help is not surrender. Survival is not weakness. You are more than your worst day. Healing begins when hiding ends. Hope can return even when you can't see it. The story isn't over because the chapter is hard. Pain may shape you, but it doesn't have to define you. Sometimes courage looks like staying, and walking away from the ledge is walking towards life. So, with that, Chris, I want to thank you for being the author of Walking Away from the Ledge.
Yeah.
Now, how can the readers and listeners get a copy of the book? How can they reach out to you?
Amazon's the easiest way to get a copy of it. There was some other links before, but yeah, Amazon's the easiest way to get a copy. You can find me on LinkedIn. I look about the same. My beard on the profile pic there is a little longer. I just had a trim, but and Facebook as well is kind of the social medias that I stick on. But yeah, those would be the easiest way. Amazon to get a copy, and yeah, Chris Kruger on LinkedIn or Facebook.
Thank you, brother. And remember, you do not have to drown to see a transition. Grab that vet S.O.S Lifeline. We're here to help. Remember to like, subscribe, share. Listen to all your platforms. If you like to go and work out, throw it on Spotify. If you like to watch it, you could go on YouTube. But I challenge you to just listen to it and just close your eyes and just listen to the words that are coming through your speakers, whether it be your headphones or if you have it on your TV. A lot of information is in there. Walking away from the ledge is very powerful. And I want to say thank you, Chris, for showing others how you walked away from the ledge and how you're here still paying it forward and showing others they can do the same as well.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, absolutely.
Until next time, everybody, take care. Peace.